God has made us to be a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, the people of God. That's who we are now. So what? What are we to do? Our identity, who we are, informs our action. He gives us our purpose, and it's there in 1 Peter 2:9. There in the middle. You're God's special possession, so that. That's a purpose statement. Here's the purpose. So that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. This is our purpose. And believe it or not, this is also a quotation from the Old Testament. Again, it's Isaiah 43. Let me read it to you. Isaiah 43, verse 21. We saw in verse 20, to give drink to my people, my chosen, the people I formed for myself, that they may proclaim my praise. So what Peter did there was he quoted Isaiah 43, New Exodus, Exodus 19, New Israel. Then he brought back in Isaiah 43, the purpose of the new Exodus, and then he closed out with Hosea 2. It's just all Old Testament. Here, the purpose is that we would be a so that people, so that we would proclaim the praises of the God who's called us out of darkness and into his light. He has bestowed upon the church the promises and the titles and the privilege of Israel, but those blessings are not for us to sit around and glory in our identity and how awesome it is that God has done what he's done for us. We do glory in that, but it's always a means to an end. And the end here is that we might declare the praises. We don't get in our little holy huddles and just talk about our identity. Our identity informs us for action. Too many churches are ingrown. Too many function not as a kingdom of priests, but as a kingdom of monks. God's made us to be his people so that we would declare his praises to the world. We are blessed to be a blessing. We are privileged, yes, and we are. And yes, we will talk about those privileges, and we'll have 6 and 8 week classes over our privileges, but the end goal is always privileged to proclaim. Given grace in order to go to the world. As many have said, the gospel has come to us because it's on its way to someone else. It's the reason he's left us here. God gave Israel an identity, a role, and a mission, and now we inherit that identity, that role, and that mission. The identity is the new covenant people of God. We've been chosen. We're God's special possession. That role is to be a priesthood. And remember, what is the function of a priest? To mediate between God and people. That's what priests do. We stand between God and the world. We bring the knowledge of God to those who don't know him. And our mission is there in verse 9 to declare the excellencies of the Lord. Declare, and that requires us opening our mouths. God has given us, his church, this privilege. And friends, it is a privilege. It is a privilege, and you can do it. You have everything you need to do what God's calling you to do. The very essence of the church then, the very nature, is to be outward focused. It's to be a so that people, to bring the blessing of God to others. Again, remember, it's always been that way. That's always been the goal. God created the world so that the whole world would express and display his glory, but then there was sin, but he didn't give up on his plan. Come to Genesis 12, says, you know what, I'm going to pick this one guy and I'm going to bless this guy. And I'm going to bless his family, and I'm going to give them a law and keep them as a cohesive nation. They're going to be different, and the whole nation will be a kingdom of priests, just like Abraham was to be one who was blessed so that the whole world be blessed. This is why I'm creating this people. I want to see my blessing go to the world. So I'm getting Abraham, then I'm getting this nation of Israel, and they're going to be a kingdom of priests. I want my glory to go to the nations, and this is the people I'm going to use if they'll obey, but they didn't. That's the whole story of the Old Testament. But you know what? In Isaiah 49, in the middle of that new Exodus section, there's a prophecy that when God comes and restores his people, then they will be a light to the nations. Isaiah 49:6. And that's our calling, church. To be the light of the world. That's us. We exist to proclaim his glory. It's not for us. It's for reaching people. The church is by its very nature to have an outward focus. Blessed, yes, and amen, in order to be a blessing. So the question for us this morning is, are you operating out of your identity? Are you living in line with the purpose of your existence? Are you a priest? You are a priest. Are you functioning as a priest? Are you missional? Missional, just the adjectival form of the noun missionary. Sent one. Are you living as if you are sent? Because you are. You're an ambassador for Christ. How are we doing? Do you know the names of your neighbors? Have you served your neighbors? Have you had them over? Do your coworkers know that you're a follower of Christ? Stay-at-home moms, do you view yourself as a missionary to these little unbelieving hearts? God's made us to be priests. We are a priesthood, mediating the blessing of God to the world, declaring his praises. There's a little book by a guy named Michael Frost, and he uses the acronym BELLS to help us gain these habits of missional people. And so I want to run them by you real quick. BELLS, BELLS. First, bless. Really, we could just summarize all this of just saying we're people who are intentionally doing what God wants us to be. But first, let's think through this. Bless. Do we think about how we can bless people who are unchurched or dechurched or part of a bad church? How can we bless them? How can we give them words of affirmation? Maybe we could give them a gift. Are we known on our block as the generous house? Maybe it's someone at your job. What can you do to show some act of kindness? Eat. I love this one. It's probably my favorite for a couple reasons. Look, think about this. There's this phrase in the New Testament that happens 3 times. The Son of Man, Jesus, the Son of Man came. Fill in the blank. 3 times. So it tells us pretty clearly, why did he come? The Son of Man came. One of them is Luke 19:10, to seek and save the lost. Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. One of them is in Mark 10. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. The third one is the Son of Man came eating and drinking. Probably not what any of us would have filled in, is it? The point, though, is that if we studied the person of Jesus and his ministry methods, it was always around a table. Dude was always eating, and usually eating with people he shouldn't have been eating with. Eating with people that made people question his reputation. And so here's the thing. I know you're busy. I'm busy. We're all busy. We'll always be busy. People have always been busy. I don't want to add to your calendar so much. I want you to be intentional with the rhythms of life you already have. And one of them is you got to eat. You got to eat. At least twice a day, you got to eat. And so what if you started using your meals with intentionality? And what if you invited? I know you're already having meals with members of the church at least, 3 times a week. I know you're doing that. I'm talking about that 4th one. What if you had an unchurched member, an unchurched person or a neighbor or a coworker, and hey, you know what? Hey, let's grab breakfast before work. Or let's grab coffee after we work out. Or hey, let's go to lunch together. And just use it with intentionality. You're already going to be doing it, so be hospitable. Open your home on occasion. Eat. Eat with intentionality. Listen. I think Christians have a bad reputation because we just don't listen well. And so part of what we would do is hear, hey, man, tell me your story. What's been some good things that have happened in your life? What are some bad things that have happened in your life? Do you have any type of religious background? Have you ever gone to church? And just hear their story and start there. Just be a good listener. A lot of people are just looking for someone that'll just listen to them. But also listen to the Lord and be in tune with him. Being aware of his presence because he is present. Being aware of his presence all the time, everywhere we go. And then learn. Learn Christ. As we're following Christ, pursuing him daily in prayer and the word, we'll be in tune with our King and what he desires for our lives. And then the S is sent. View yourself as sent everywhere you go. Again, every Christian is sent. John 20:21. Jesus says, as the Father sent me, I'm sending you. Every Christian is a sent person. You are God's chosen people. View yourself that way as a royal priesthood who exists to declare the excellencies of the Lord. And so wherever you are, you're sent there. You're sent to your neighborhood. This actually makes life fun. It turns a random visit to the grocery store into an adventure with Jesus because now you're sent to the grocery store, sent to the bread aisle for him. Maybe nothing happens. That's okay, but man, it was worth the intention. Sent to your job. You live where you live because God has you there. Sent to the gym. Sent to the nursery. Because there is the largest concentration of unbelievers on this campus right now. You want not good at evangelism? Go to the nursery and practice sharing the gospel with our kids. King Jesus left us here to be his witnesses. There's two last words of Jesus, his final account with his people, and both of them talk about the topic of evangelism. Matthew 28, make disciples as you go. Acts 1, be my witnesses. Not go witness on occasion, be my witness. This led one commentator to say, it appears that Jesus regarded evangelism as the very reason for their being. It appears so. It's always been that way. We have the Spirit and we have full and final forgiveness. So we, unlike Israel of old, can get it done. That's why we're here. He could have wrapped it all up his first time around. You know, he didn't have to come twice, but he left us here for the sake of mission, for the sake of witness. It's not that he has a mission for the church. God does not have a mission for the church. God has a church for his mission. He's a missionary God, and we get the privilege and responsibility of doing our part. The church is the result of mission. It's the instrument of mission. We're formed by mission and for mission. One theologian said the church exists by mission, just as fire exists by burning. Where there is no mission, there is no church. And so we are a privileged people. I mean, these are some amazing identities. But we can't merely sit around in our holy huddles and talk about how privileged we are. We are privileged, but it's to a purpose. So some of us need to get up off our blessed assurance. Quit sitting on the premises, start standing on the promises and doing what God has created us to do.